Now at this time I'd like to introduce Ramon del Castillo. He will be sharing a few of his poems with us. One of them was written especially for Rich. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank Darlene Jaramillo for inviting me to share a couple of poems. One of them in particular is about Rich Castro. We talked, Virginia mentioned about crossing paths and having a function in his life. I had taken my son to place by some posters. He's going to continuate from 8th to 9th grade. And I ran into Darlene, and she said, "You're the one who wrote that poem for Rich, aren't you?" If my son hadn't said, "Let's stop in here, Dad, and look around," we would have never run into each other. So I believe that there was a purpose for that. In our culture, and I'm glad that the theme is multicultural, because I can see the beautiful cultures and beautiful brown skins and black skins out there, and white skins also. And I think that that's a predominant theme that this country is going to have to deal with in the next 10 to 15 years. In our culture, in the Mexican-American culture, we have a concept called despedida. A despedida is a farewell. And a farewell is something that the Mayan cultures used to do many, many years ago. They would write farewells to people who were in the community who had left them. I wrote this poem about Rich and dedicated it to his family, because Rich was also a mentor of mine, a man who I deeply respected, a man who gave a lot to a lot of issues, including the field that I'm involved in, which is mental health. And it goes like this. It's called Una Despedida to Brother Rich. For whom the bell tolls for Richard T. Castro, hermano chicano que dio toda su vida por la causa de humanidad. The many masks of Richard Castro, the educator, the politician, the humanitarian, will linger in our minds forever. We were richer with Rich, from the prodigious snow-capped mountains in the community of Grand Junction to the poverty-stricken barrio of La Garra in Eden, Colorado. From the colonias of South Texas to West Side Denver, we were richer with Rich. We obtained more justice because of Rich, from the packed rooms of legislative sessions to the fight against English only. We were richer with Rich. We gained more equality because of Rich. We knew he would always be there, from the March on Civil Rights and Welfare Rights to the demonstrations against racism in Denver. We were richer with Rich. We walked down that lonely path with you. Now there is more clarity down that path. Pero ahorita, there will be less spring and less birds to sing, but your passing will bring a new dawn. Señor Castro, you led us to the mountain as a true Chicano Moses. The time to reach the highest mountain of all is here. The time to ascend with the Almighty has come. Watch for the fruits of your labor in peace, for it was peace that you sought, and as such, it is peace that you shall have. Your brethren shall mourn your spirit forever. From the halls of justice in the rural communities of southern Colorado to the overcrowded classrooms of urban school districts, from the pulpits of those who preach truth to the corners of obscurity, from the halls where mariachi music fills the air to the meetings where all of us congregate to reaffirm one another. Brother Rich, lay there and rest, for your struggle is over, and thanks to you, ours will continue. The seeds of justice and equality and peace that you have sown shall not lay bare. They shall be cultivated as you had wished, to create a better world for all of us. Vaya con Dios. The time to reach the almighty mountain is here. One of the things that I always encourage youth and young folks like yourselves to do is to write. Forget the spelling and the punctuation, write, because all of you have beautiful minds. You can see, you can feel, you can do, you can touch, you can smell. All of your senses are intact, and if they aren't, it doesn't matter, you can still write. When I was growing up and going to school in a place called Wichita, Kansas, I never once saw a book that had Castro or del Castillo or Gonzalez or Padilla. Never once. And I made a promise to myself that I was going to write a book. Well, my writing is a gift, I think it's a gift, that I have is in poetry. And I really encourage all of you out there to write, because if you don't, your kids, and you will have kids, when they walk into the libraries, such as in schools at the Redirectional, or the Denver Public Library, or wherever it's at, if they don't see books with Spanish surnames, they're going to wonder about what it is that we did to contribute to this thing called history. Therefore, it's very important for all of you to write and to begin to publish those things in books, in journals, and magazines, the way that Richard did, the way that I like to do, the way that people like Lalo Delgado do, that pass that on to all of us. The other thing that has to do with who we are is a poem I call Quien Soy, the realization of our identity. And the reality, and this is specific for Latinos, is that we are the products of a history of a lot of people: the Greeks, the Romans, the Visigoths, the Asians, the African Americans, not the African Americans, the Africans. And we are a mixture of all of that. And as such, we need to come to terms with the real history, and we need to teach that real history to our children, and we need to write our books. I have been asked by the university in Fort Collins to address the Semana Latina. And if you can imagine a Chicano coming from the streets such as myself, walking into a university with 700 people dressed in coats and ties and having to read a poem, it was quite an honor for me to do that. And you can do the same. There's no reason why you can't. You have a mind, and that mind needs stimulation. But it's really about who we are. It goes like this. ¿Quién soy? Soy la mujer con piel morena, the woman with brown skin. I stood next to great African princesses and listened to the sounds of drums beating across distant oceans, whose message was an adios, as our people were shipped away to a white man's land where we would become slaves and where our culture would be laughed at and misunderstood. ¿Quién soy? Who am I? Soy el hombre con piel moreno. I am the man with brown skin. My dreams take me back to an ancient civilization where we were warriors and wore the plumed feathers of the Quetzalcoatl, where mystification hid the healing secrets of life practiced by our great curanderas. ¿Quiénes somos? Somos gente con piel de muchos colores. We are people of many colors. Tenemos raíces del conquistador. We have the roots of the conquistador. El gachupín que destruyó casi todo, incluyendo nuestras almas, pero no podía destruir nuestros corazones. ¿Quiénes somos? Somos mulatos, a people called half-breeds whose music has filled half the world and whose great-great-grandfathers carried sacks full of cotton for the masses. Somos mestizos, beautiful bronze people whose language, full of the mixture of pain and sorrow, is used by half the population of the Western Hemisphere. ¿Quiénes somos? Who are we? Somos hermanos que compartimos, who share a history full of blood and types of people. El pelado, he who supposedly carries around an inferiority complex, but in reality is the dialectic of white privilege. El pachuco, the carrier of Galo, the historical resistor. El vato, the defiant one that protects nuestra raza from losing our identity completely. El cholo, the contemporary deviant who is searching for meaning in this complex world, the one who wears the headband and struts in front of the institution and expresses a deep need to be. ¿Quién soy? I am the personification of history. I am the bridge of understanding between the Latin American countries. I am she, the one with the great big heart who protects our children from the hurts of a society. I am el gesticulador del mundo. Soy el gran campeón de justicia. Soy humano de una gran raza. Soy el Jesús Cristo de la tierra. Y soy quien soy. What I want to do It's called Vato Loco. And in conjunction with Belinda Garcia and the West Side Youth Team, we had gone to Lookout Mountain to address those youth that are incarcerated. And believe me, on a per capita basis, in other words, statistically, children that are black and brown are overrepresented in those institutions, and we have to do something about that. But what the theater was about, the theater was about a young guy who just got in, trying to play the role of the tough guy, and he runs into a guy who's been in prison, who's been in Lookout Mountain, who's turning 18, and now has to go to Canyon City. And this guy is trying to teach him something, but the young kid is real resistive. And this poem is about Vato Loco. The other part of Vato Loco, I think, is that person that's inside of us, that's been in this society, that has struggled, that is seeking freedom, that is seeking opportunity, and sometimes acts it out in society. Vato Loco, con su cabeza llena de mota, lighting the paths, dark with fear. Can you hear? As you sit idly in the classrooms where the silence of indoctrination subtly grabs you and makes a believer of false notions of inferiority and passes judgment about your ancestors' feathers. Vato Loco, your path, they tell you, is predetermined. It is filled with solemn images behind bars and intestines filled with crack, eating away at your conscience, laying bare on the front streets de sus propios barrios, filled with homeboys and Pop-Tarts and gruesome realities and nightmares caused by the ingestion of filthy needles shot into arms full of tattoos. Vato Loco, take off that handkerchief from around your head and wipe up the blood of 1,000 years of misery when you were singing sweet melodies into the ears of las rucas about dreams that have never come true. Vato Loco, escape from the fires of an infierno that scorch your alma and fry you like a crispy critter so that you can become the breakfast for the champions of society who eventually take everything that you are worth and treat it for sale as a commodity on the common market. Yes, man. Vato Loco, wake up. Anachronism is not your dessert. Pan dulce y chocolate sounds better. Wake up. Vato Loco, wake up. Gracias.